Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 16th day of January 2019. Well, it is snowy out on the high desert. Not much or anything, but it's still here because it's really cold. There might be, I would be surprised if there's maybe a half an inch out there. It's really just a dusting, you know. I spent part of my childhood in Alaska, and so I mean, snow is different when you live there. So it's all consuming during the wintertime. So I don't know. A lot of people from Alaska move here where I live, though. I've met so many people from up there, and they all seem to want to settle here in Central Oregon. I don't know why. Certainly not to escape the winter, but although, I mean, yeah, it is, but it's not usually the same, other than a couple winters ago where we had, 2 feet of snow for 2 months, or 3 months rather. Yeah, that was bad. But other than that, we don't really get that. And but I've even met people that know my family up there, so it's just so we sit and we start talking, and they say, yeah, I just moved from Alaska. I was like, well, where are you from? And I tell them I live there, and then when I discovered that they lived there when I did, then I started asking, well, okay, so do you know these people and these people and these people? And turns out they knew my aunt and uncle, they knew my cousins, they knew all kinds of people. I even remember one time we moved down here when I was almost 11 to Portland and to Oregon, and from up there, and I went back up for a visit when I was 17. I went over Thanksgiving, and I was waiting to get on the plane, and a couple and their 2 kids, one was a baby, 6 months old, they were waiting too, and he worked for Western Airlines, and so we got to go into they took me with them when they found out who my uncle was. Turns out that new baby got its diaper changed in the back of my uncle's car. So, needless to say, I was family at that point, and they took me under their wing, and we got to go into the little area where the very rich people get to go into, and also the crew and all of that. You can go into a special waiting room, and it's secluded, and you're not in the same one. So I got to go in there, and they took care of me all the way to Alaska when my aunt met me at the airport. And so there were hellos all around, and it's true, everybody knows everybody up there. So imagine my horror when Sister Sarah was on the ticket with John McCain. It was hilarious because there was an article when she was mayor. She took $55,000 from the road budget money to redecorate the mayor's office when she was mayor of Wasilla. Now, up there, you need that money for the roads. You do. Trust me. I lived there. I know. You don't need to do that. And the guy that was interviewed, his guy by the name of Ed. Now, Ed was a dog musher, and we knew him. We knew the family. We were dog mushers, too. And when we lived up there, when we were in Wasilla, we did sled dog races and stuff. And so we knew this guy. And so I recognized the name. And he remarked that she had this weird red wallpaper or some such, I don't know. But he said the whole room looked like a brothel. So there you go. My connection to Sarah Palin, which isn't one really, only that I was there when she moved up there. I think I don't know if they were there during the earthquake, or if they may have moved up there just after the earthquake. And we were in Wasilla during that time, so I would have still been living there when her family moved there. So anyhow, connections, huh? The best one was when the Canadian disc jockeys got her on the phone, had some fun with her. That was the best one ever. Oh my goodness. And now we have what we have, don't we? A female version in the White House. How about that? Anyhow, let's count 13 and see what we have for today. Well, we have the Four of Cups. Now, this is an interesting card because we see a guy whose back is up against the tree, kind of a metaphor for back up against the wall. You see three chalices in front of him. You see one being offered to him, sort of coming out of the cloud there, so you don't really know who that's coming from. But take a look, if you can, at his face. He's despondent. He's thinking. He's in his own space, right? And he really can't see what he has, and he can't see what he's being offered. Sometimes things just get to be too much emotionally, and we just have to take a time out. And so if you're feeling like that today, you know, with everything that's going on in everyone's lives these days, whether you're a federal worker or somebody who's not a federal worker, but is, of course, affected by all of this. I go and I drop the card. You know, take some time, and because you clearly have a lot of it right now, since there doesn't seem to be any end in sight to this nonsense. But it's almost like this is Donald, isn't it? He can't even see what he was offered, you know? He was offered money for the wall, but then he decided he wanted more. And here, and in this country, how things work, when you want money governmentally to do something, just like with anything, you have to outline what it's going to cover. You can't just say, hey, I need another $5 billion. You got to list what it's for, but he doesn't want to do that. So therefore, he just expects people to go, oh, sure. Well, maybe the Russian oligarchy will do that, but we won't. Taxpayers won't, okay? We won't do that. It's not going to happen, all right? We got to know what the money's being spent on, and if it even makes sense to do it. And then you decide whether or not the Congress decides, House of Representatives decides what they're going to do, right? Well, if you don't say what it is you want it for, they're not going to give it to you. It's that simple. Well, the Republicans might, but the Democrats won't. They want to know what it's for. Does it make sense? You know, if some of it does and some of it doesn't, then maybe they're willing to appropriate for that which does make sense, but not the other, right? So this guy couldn't even see what was in front of him, what he had. And now he has nothing, does he? I saw a thing where people are saying on Twitter that it's going to take the TSA to just not come to work anymore for this to end. Because if you think about it, if you can't get on your flight, and the other one that could stop would be the air traffic control. If those folks would just simply not go to work, then this shutdown would end. But think about what that's saying. It's saying that the Republicans in Congress don't care. They don't care about the people in this country, even the ones that voted for them. If they're putting their allegiance behind a man that is clueless of how this even works, if they're not even going to tell him and say, Mr. President, we will do nothing for you until you function properly. Once you do that, we can make things happen here. Yeah, they won't even do that. No, instead, they're being dumb and stupid. So, and they can't see what they have or what it is they're about to lose. I don't know. I was saying to my husband on the way back from the store this morning, the chickens were getting close to being out of food again. So they go through they go through like a 40-pound bag. We have 15 chickens. So they go through 40 pounds of food just like in no time. And they're not laying right now other than one egg a day. It's like, well, we think it's the same one doing it. So, and then there might be another one that does sporadically, but right now they're not laying. It's wintertime and they don't. So, we're having to buy all this food to feed them, and we're having to buy eggs at the store too. So it's kind of funny. I had someone give me a weird look when they saw me buying eggs and chicken food. And they just kind of went, uh-huh, So I don't know. I don't know. The things we do for our chickens. They're clumped in the house right now in their chicken coop. They don't want to be outside in this cold and in the snow and everything. They also don't like the freezing fog. I think that they can't get their feathers dry. And so you'll see them out there taking dirt baths, which is the most hilarious thing you've ever seen. And I'm still using these apple ones, and I'm in this weird bag thing that I thought was a good idea at the time. It's not, because I can't get a good feel on the runes and let them fall through my hand. So anyhow. Oh, well, this is Iwas. I love this rune. It's the perfect as above, so below rune. And it's number 13, hence my favorite. It's a good one to use in bind runes to bring source energy and spirit into the working itself, into the bind rune. It provides it's kind of known as a backbone for a bind rune in a way, because you can see the line there. Anything that has a straight line in the center of it can be used as sort of the foundation for a bind rune, if you will. Another good one that's a good one for foundation is Perthrow, especially if you have it pointing upward like a cauldron. Someone who watches this channel shared with me one that she did, and she was felt inspired to create a bind rune with Perthrow in it, and it really does. She felt it had an alchemical effect, and I think she's right. I think that it had, to me, it had, and I told her I thought it had a cauldron feel to it. So that was really a nice bind rune. She did one for healing for a friend, which is also very nice. So I really encourage people to play around with these and learn them and figure out how you can make them, work for you in your life and for others as well. It's wonderful magic, very positive, very healing, very aligning. Get you focused in the right way. Even if you just use it to sort of guide your path through life, even if you don't use it magically the way I do and others do, they're still just so wonderful to help you along the way, basically. Gosh, everything is falling off of my desk today, and I can't find anything. But anyway, Iwas is a really, not to be confused with Ewas, which looks more like an M. That's the soul vehicle for our Merkaba. But this, Iwas, is again the 13th rune, and it's there to help us basically align our energies in source presence. I'm going to take a look here in the grimoire. Actually, my big one. There was one thing in here that I thought was really interesting that I wrote down about them. But basically, you're dealing with the blending of astral with earthly energies when you're dealing with, here we go, when you're dealing with Iwas. It's the rune of paradox, the connection between opposites, like I say, as above, so below. I don't know if I wrote that down here, if it's in the little one, but it links the physical and non-physical realms. Oh, okay. Yeah, banishing, protection, all of that, healing. So what does that then have to do with this? When we can't see what we have in front of us, ego is in play. So we're not allowing, even though we see that tree up there, and in a way, he has access. You can see this, if you look at the structure, it's very similar here to Iwas, okay? And if we're using this as the backbone between spirit and form, essentially, or the channel between spirit and form, let me get a little closer here. You kind of have the same effect here with the back up against the tree, but you see his back is against spirit, and he's not allowing spirit to inform the process, right? And you could say the same thing about Trump at this point. He's not allowing spirit to inform his process at all. It's all about him, and that's obvious every time he opens his mouth. Everything is about him. It's all about ego run amok. It's all about service to self instead of service to others. When you're like that, you see you're unable to see what you truly have in front of you. See, it's not the wealth. If that's all you have, yeah, you might be able to pay your bills. You might get to have a nice lifestyle, but you don't have what you need. You really don't. If you don't have spirit informing that process every second of your life, then you're going to be miserly about your greed, and you're going to be greedy. You're going to be miserly about your wealth, rather, and you're going to be greedy. You're going to not see the need of others. You're not going to be able to see graciousness or express graciousness in your life. You're not going to be able to understand that there is something greater at work than simply yourself. And that's what we're seeing now. And unfortunately, the party that supports him is in the bag. So I don't know. I don't know what happens to people when the momentum gets so great. Maybe they just can't stop. But the damage that they do is, I mean, it's evident. You can't ignore it the way they do. So here, this is what one group of people are doing to the country. They're ignoring what's here. They're ignoring the true wealth that we all share together, which is our unity of purpose, our unity of expression, our unity of this whole thing that we're doing together in the United States. This was never supposed to be a white nationalist country. That isn't what we are. We are the greatest expression of diversity in the world. We should revel in that. We should see what that does for us, because it enriches everyone's life. If we live here, that doesn't happen. We can't see what's around us. Just in my own neighborhood, we have diverse ethnicity. I can't say that word this morning. We have diverse ethnicity. Saying that 3 times, and you'll see how bad it is. It's difficult. Anyway, we have a lot of it, and it's wonderful. We have people from all over the country. We have people from different places in the world that live here, and it makes the whole neighborhood better. It just does. To have that acceptance of one another, to view everyone as a neighbor, it's much better than this, isn't it? But for that to happen, you need to invoke Awas in your life, or Iwas in your life. You need to manifest spirit into form, so that spirit is constantly informing that process. So to see someone as the other instead of a brother or sister wouldn't happen. It just wouldn't. We would greet all in grace and dignity and treat everyone that way. But instead, we have a self-focus at work, one that can't see beyond the nose of his face long enough to see the damage that this attitude and this belief structure of his is doing to people. So, and sadly, one party seems to be reinforcing it all. So, we'll see. Well, in any event, today is a 7-day. So it's a day of magic. It's a day of balance. It's a day of bringing things to balance, seeing how they settle out. If you're experiencing, if you're feeling down or depressed, and it's not, having to do with what the government is doing to you, if it's just something else, then what I would say is, if you're having trouble seeing what you have, just stop, just stop. Form no thought. Just try to, go into meditation, make your mind as quiet as possible. And then eventually start thinking about what you do have. Years ago, I can't remember her last name, but first name I believe was Sarah, and she was on Oprah, and she's the lady that did the gratitude journal. And Oprah said that gratitude, keeping a gratitude journal, changed her life. Just every day writing 5 things down that you're happy about, things that you can express gratitude, even if it's the simple ones. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my son. I'm grateful for my other son. I'm grateful for a home to live in. I'm grateful for, whatever. Okay. It could be just obvious ones to start with, but pretty soon you find that you're actually thinking about, you're trying to find other things. And then suddenly you realize you're in a much better place than you thought you were, So whatever is keeping you from seeing what you have, understand that that's a choice. You can see things any way you choose. So if you choose to look away when something's being offered to you, well, it kind of is what it is, isn't it? It was offered, you didn't take it. Now, maybe it wasn't what you wanted. Well, that's okay. But if you're ignoring the overture when it's extended to you in love and grace and dignity and respect and in a loving way that's trying to heal something, maybe, it's one of those moments, are you someone who, even when you're given what you want, it isn't enough? So if you're just looking at the card from that standpoint and not from the greater standpoint of what's happening to people's lives in this country at the hands of somebody who should not be there, doesn't know enough to be there, isn't interested in knowing enough to be there, doesn't want to find out, wants to just go with what he feels. Well, clearly it ain't working. But if you're somebody that is like that can't accept the gift of love from someone else, or the gift of reason, or the gift of hope, or the gift of anything, even facts, if you can't accept those things, you're in trouble. And likely what the deal is you're so filled with ego and so focused on whatever you've decided things are in life that there's nothing else out there. You've lost total objectivity. So I think the only way to change that is to completely do the opposite. You have to do something, in other words, that shocks you out of that depressive energy. Because I'm not saying that this necessarily means someone is depressed, although it could be. Maybe this person is something going on and they're sad and they're depressed and they just can't get it together. But again, even when that's happening, you're not allowed to see, spirit is not there. You're not aware of it. You're not aware of who you really are, and how that there really isn't anything that should do this to you. Not if you were fully present in who you truly are. So it's regrettably an issue that we deal with, though, here in form, this duality. We can look at it as male and female, any kind of either or situation. But in truth, the real duality is spirit and form, or spirit and ego. Okay? There's your real duality. If you can get it back to that basis and start imagining yourself thinking as your higher self, imagine yourself, using the language that higher self would use. And so that would, of course, then make you have to think about it, right? And think about yourself as the creator manifested into form. The loving creator manifested into form. It can change your life in the same way that Sarah's gratitude journal was doing for people. and I'm sure still continues to do. I would bet you dimes to donuts Oprah still keeps hers. I did for quite a while, and then I stopped. I don't know why, but I did. I think I just got busy or something, or maybe it was when I got ill or something. Maybe that's when it was. I don't know. Again, my focus was not right, and I got extremely ill. So if you're experiencing that, it's a very seductive place to be. It keeps you there. Ego is like that. And I know that people think, oh, I'm not ego minded, but if you can look at things in terms of spirit and ego, anything that's of form is ego related. Okay. It just is. It's about the personality, okay, and how we manifest and get through our day. So ego is present in you. It's there. It's your personality. It's part of all of that. Okay. So it's not to say that you're an egomaniac. It's just that sometimes we get stuck there in our focus onto things that are upsetting and we can't see what we have. And the seeing what we have is spirit. Okay. That's what that ability to do that, that part of us is spirit doing that. That comes from that. It doesn't come from personality or ego because ego is just about themselves. So when we see somebody with a big ego, okay, that's a service to self person. Okay, that's somebody that really can't see the bigger picture unless it benefits them. So sometimes they can be a little confusing. You think, oh, they're improving. And then later, no, they're not. They're still the same person. So anyhow, I think that that's what we have here. We either have somebody that is so wrapped up in themselves that they really just can't see anything, maybe a service to self-oriented individual like who's in the Oval Office, or we're just stuck in something right now emotionally, and we're just having a really hard time. And so I think that if that's what is going on for you today, then try to invoke spirit. Try to see yourself as the higher self. See yourself as out of this. And even if you have to go into a meditative state and imagine yourself releasing from your body, that might be something you could do. I do that if I'm having if I'm feeling vampiric energy, entering or coming around me. The first thing I do is I align and I go within. I go to the still point, and I become higher self. And at that point, I detach from the body because we're not really fully in here anyway. Okay, we're outside of the body as well as in the body. We're everywhere. Okay, our essence is not contained. All right. So I imagine myself leaving the body and getting out away from all of this, just stepping in it, like my blog, stepping aside the chaos of whatever's going on in my emotions, and it's like I release from it and just say, okay, you go and you do whatever you need to do. I'm going to go do me over here. And when you're done with whatever this pity party is, or whatever you're concerned about, or whatever you're ruminating on, whatever you can't let go of, I'm going to be over here, out of the way of it. And trust me, it goes away really quickly when you do that. You separate from the experience and you remove your spirit from it and just say, oh, I'm not doing that. That's one way to deal with it. It's the way I deal with it. So I don't know if that would help anybody or not, but I wanted to share that because this card is just, I just find this card upsetting. It's like, oh no, 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 no. Don't go there. Pull back, get out of it. Pull your spirit out of it. Say no more, not going there. Otherwise, you get stuck. We all do. We can't release from it. And it's such a terrible place to be when you don't feel there are any solutions or anything else. Well, there always are. We just can't see them. Sometimes the solution is just walking away from something and just letting it go. The Eight of Cups tells us that, to just let go of what no longer serves and just walk away if you have to. Go find something else. If you've got to come back to this later on, well, you're likely going to be in a better frame of mind when you do. And so you may see it completely differently. Our emotions do that to us. They keep us from seeing things clearly. And clearly that's what's going on here. Fours are about foundation, they're about structure, but they're also about getting stuck. It's also about taking downtime and allowing things to gel. So if that's all that you're doing, great. But if you feel like you're getting stuck, release from it. Find a way to do that. Either use my method or think about what I just told you and see if you can find another way that you might do to accomplish the same thing. Okay. Um, I just give suggestions. So, you're welcome to use them if you want to. But if you want to use them to sort of craft your own, that's even better. You've got to make this fit for you, otherwise it probably won't work. You have to have a way of separating from getting stuck into things. That single-minded focus that you can't release from, and it keeps you from seeing everything else that you have. So meditation, separating the spirit from form, gratitude journal, whatever you got to do. Take a walk outside, do something. Get your mind away from that stuck focus, though. And if you ever invite a championship team to dinner, don't give them junk food. I mean, my God. To go to the White House and you're served junk food? Really? I mean, I'm not trying to trash these places because, sometimes what they serve's good. I like some of it, but most of it I can't eat, but still, they have a chef that prepares their food. Didn't he find out about this? Didn't anybody tell him? I'm sure their mothers are just mortified. Whatever. Anyhow, so I guess I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. Yes, today's Wednesday. Today is if you're going to do some magic today, it's a Mercury day, so you might want to focus on communication stuff. If you're having difficulty communicating with somebody, or someone that's having trouble with communication and they'd like you to do something for them in that regard, you could perform some magics, that increase communication. Maybe balanced communication. Maybe somebody rises to the occasion a little too much and wants to maybe tamp that down. So, you could do something with respect to that to try to get those energies more in balance for people communication wise. You might cast an intention to get. I know that there was a conversation between both parties and Trump today, or it's going to take place, or it has already. We're like 3 hours, behind or ahead of everybody, or behind, or whatever we are. It's like 11 o'clock now, so it's what, 2 o'clock there, so that may have already taken place, and so we can't necessarily cast the intention for successful communication or a successful outcome there, but you can still do it for any future conversations that they want to have. Because that's what needs to happen. They need to have a conversation that's based in truth and facts. And simply because someone says this is so, and they produce a piece of paper with statistics that have been gathered, you don't just then reject it out of hand as fake news. So you leave us with nothing when you do that. So magic's, I think, today, leadership, communication, resolve, resolution. You could focus maybe a little bit on that today if that's what you want to do, or whatever else you feel. Wednesday's a nice day. It's kind of like, it's a 7 in a way, because it's the middle where you got the two sides on either end. The representation of the scales, really. But yeah, that's what I would do. In fact, I think I may do something today. I may do just maybe a healing ritual that focuses on healing communication. So maybe I'll do that. Anyhow, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for coming by. If it's your first time, again, thank you for coming. Click subscribe. I would love you to do that. If you've been back before, I'm so happy you're here. Oh, this is such a difficult time for all of us, and it makes it a lot easier to know that people are out there and maybe thinking the same thing, I hope. Anyhow, be good to yourself. Be good to one another, and blessed be.